Okay, I wanted to cover a few things on the Pinephone. I've got the replacement motherboard back. It did take a little bit to get this thing back, and I want to cover something that I was not aware of when I got this thing back. So first off, when you get the motherboard back, to get it back in the case, you want to kind of push back these ribbon cables. You have a ribbon cable here. You have your two cameras that you're going to have to install, and I'm going to cover something with that in just a second. Then you have this ribbon cable, your antenna, and then these two ribbon cables here. So you've got to kind of slide the motherboard up underneath all of these because you need those up on top. Now, I want to mention something on the video that I did on taking this thing apart to send the motherboard into California, which I do have a recommendation for Pine 64 related to this as well. But these two cameras were actually sent back to me in the mail. So you need to remove them from the board. The video that Pine 64 has out on how to do all of this, they actually show the cameras already on the motherboard, and they take the motherboard off and put it in a bag and leave these attached. So it makes it look like you're supposed to just send the cameras in with the motherboard, but that is not the case. You need to remove these cameras because it's just a waste of time, because they end up sending them back to you anyway. Now, to get the cameras off, if you remember from the original video, we flipped these little tabs, we flipped them up this way. So this one flipped up that way, this one flipped from this side up. But these two for the camera actually flip backwards. So they flip from this side up this way. And they're tiny little tabs, so you need to make sure that you don't break them when you're flipping them up. So if you're putting a lot of pressure on them, then there's something wrong there. So remove the cameras before you send this in. Now for Pine 64, my suggestion here is they literally had me down for a month and a half waiting on a new motherboard. It would have been nice if they'd let me keep the motherboard that I had and send it in after I get the other motherboard. Even if they had a $25 deposit, or something for whatever the reason is that they want people to send this back to California, because this motherboard comes from China and it takes a long time to get it. And the whole time that I was waiting on the motherboard, I was down, all for a little pin that was in the cellular chip. So anyway, in order to get this in, pull your ribbon cables back, slide. You're going to have to pick a side, and I kind of, there's a tab here and here and here and here that hold this motherboard into the chassis. And so what I did is, because there's less components over here on this side, I slid the motherboard up under the tabs on this side and then popped it into place over here on this side. So that gets the motherboard in, and then all you do is slide, literally just slide. You can use your fingers, or you can get a little pair of tweezers, but slide the ribbon cable up in here. Obviously open the door first, slide the ribbon cable in and push the little door closed. And you do the same thing for this ribbon cable here and these two guys here, but again, they flip up from the front side instead of back here. And then you slide the cameras in, push them into place. Now these two ribbon cables here are socket connectors, so they're just square or rectangle sockets. So you just kind of line it up and push it. It'll pop in when you get it into place. And then your antenna can be a little finicky, but it's got a tiny little hole that you have to line up and then push it in. You're not necessarily gonna feel it pop into place because it's such a tiny little fitting, but you just want to make sure that thing is in there good and connected. Now, once you get all this in, the next thing that you're going to do is you're going to take the cover, and we're going to put the cover back on here, snap it onto place, and I'll go ahead and put this in. So we just snap this guy back into where it's going to hold on to the chassis, and it's just got little snaps that go around. So if you just kind of work your way around it, they'll snap back into place. All right, now here is the thing that I did not know, and it caused another bit of waiting, trying to get help from Pine 64, because they basically pointed me to a forum to get people to help me, and it really wasn't very much help. But this thing, when you get the new motherboard, it will not work. You won't, if you plug the battery in or plug power in, you won't get a light, you won't get any functionality at all. It'll look like you've got a dead motherboard. The reality is this motherboard comes completely empty and it won't turn on. And so what you've got to do is get a flash of, I'm using Ubuntu Touch, but you can do whatever your flavor is. And flash a SD card and put it into the unit before you turn it on, because otherwise it's not going to do anything at all. So once you get it turned on and get everything set up on the SD card, then you can actually put the battery in, turn it on, and everything should work. Now there is a wiki page that I'll put a link to in the video that you need to go look at, because you also, it says that you need to flash the USB or the USB-C down here. You've got to flash the ROM to get this thing to be fully functional again. So there's some instructions. Again, I'll put a link in the video, but putting it back together is pretty simple. Put your 15 screws back in here, put your battery back in, and then your SD card, and you should be good to go.